From the authentic soul of Bernie Siegel, MD, comes Mind Health Matters, a show that reflects Bernie's passion to reach people struggling with all of life's challenges, not just the physical ones, so that each person can live life fully with the understanding that, as Bernie reminds us, we only have today. Believing that we are all here to love one another, each in our own unique way, Bernie has crafted eternal truths and the timeless wisdom of the ages. Join Bernie as he shares his powerful journey through life while offering us special nuggets of his sacred wisdom.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Mind Health Matters with Dr. Bernie Siegel, and I am Lionel Ketchian, and we're on syndicated Dream Vision 7 radio network, media partner for the Omega Institute. The show can be heard Wednesday through Friday at 12 a.m. and 12 p.m. Eastern Time. Listen online, mobile, in your car, with Bluetooth, and on Alexa's Echo. And I also want to let you know that if you haven't been on Dr. Bernie Siegel's website, it is worth a look, and he's got so much information and tools for you to benefit your life with. And you can do that very easily by going to BernieSiegelMD.com. That's Bernie, B-E-R-N-I-E, Siegel, Siegel, MD.com. And today we have a wonderful guest, and she's back again, Mary McManus, and she's going to be talking about her new book, The Adventures of Runnergirl 1953, and this is her latest, and she's written other books, but she's here with Bernie to share some love and do some running around with us, right, Mary?
Absolutely. I like the way you put that, Lionel, and I like the way you said runner girl, because, yeah, I really wanted to emphasize the runner girl, even though I'm 65 years old. So I want to thank you and Bernie so much, and Deborah as well, for having me back on your radio show and to update everybody on what's been going on, and also to share the love and to also return the love to Bernie, who's given me so much since the 80s. So it's a real blessing to be together today.
And Mary,
Wonderful.
You said you're 65?
Yes.
I have to tell you, also with your running, and then you can get going, because you have to forgive me, but I'm always telling stories and never stop talking, so feel free to interrupt me. But for my 70th birthday, I ran the Cape Cod Marathon.
Wow.
That was to avoid the hills of New York. And it was funny because I had slowed down a bit by then, and our son was running with me, and he ran ahead and told people if they saw this fella coming up with a shaved head, tell him, speed up, keep going, you know? And It was so funny because as I'm running mile after mile, people are yelling at me, you know, get going, keep it up.
That's great.
And one year I wore a shirt with my name Bernie on it, and I learned don't ever do that again because everybody in New York kept yelling, Bernie, keep going. Come on, Bernie, speed up. And it's like, leave me alone. But let me, now that I'm done, with what The Adventures of a Running Girl, what is that saying? What is it about?
Well, I knew I needed to write another book, and I knew I needed to take a broad brush look at my healing journey these past 12 years after being diagnosed with Post-Polio Syndrome, which Western medicine said was a progressive neuromuscular disease, and I should plan to spend the rest of my life in a wheelchair. Well, so when I decided that I wanted to write this book and really put it against the backdrop of running, but also to talk about resilience, endurance, courage, strength, and as we both know, Bernie and Lionel, I'm sure you've heard Bernie talk about this, running is a wonderful metaphor for life. And after the diagnosis of post-polio syndrome, I didn't know what I was going to do because I was told to prepare to spend the rest of my life in a wheelchair. I was told that I probably need a feeding tube. I had difficulty breathing, walking. I was at the height of my award-winning career as a social worker at the VA, but I was I was falling apart, mind, body, and soul, and I kept sinking deeper and deeper into really the dark night of my mind, body, and soul. So I got still, and I asked for divine guidance, and I'd apparently forgotten everything that Bernie had taught me up to that point, because I just was lost. I truly was lost. And I knew about the mind-body connection. I knew about so many things that Bernie had helped me through different medical crises. And at that moment, though, it was all gone, and it was just really bleak for me. So I got still, and I asked for divine guidance. And interestingly enough, the answer came in the form of a poem. And I wrote the poem, Running the Race. And I had no idea why I was writing a poem about running the race. And I was sitting there in a leg brace, using a cane at that time, using a wheelchair at times for mobility, because I could barely walk up the stairs in my house. And after I wrote that poem, I just sobbed. And it was like this door opened, and the spigot turned on in my soul. And so I started writing all these poems. I had to have paper and pen with me at all times. And I feverishly wrote poems about gratitude, experiencing polio as a gift, experiencing everything that happened to me as a gift. I went back to Bernie's forum, and I started rereading Bernie's books. I also read a lot of other books. I got back into my meditation, and the writing of the poetry ignited this sense of hope. And little did I know when I wrote the poem Running the Race that I was actually going to foreshadow my 2009 Boston Marathon run. And anybody who knows me will tell you that I tend to do things in extremes, and I had never run a day in my life. And I hired a personal trainer after I was discharged from outpatient rehab. I took a total leap of faith. I left my career behind me. My amazing husband, Tom, Bernie, you've met him, he said to me, it's a no-brainer. He said, if you're going to be sick, why are you going to continue working? And so I left it all behind. And I said, I'm going to follow my bliss as a poet. I'm a writer. I love to write. But I'd forgotten all about my creativity. And I was caught in this hamster wheel of working and raising my twins. And suddenly I had this new lease on life. And 6 months after I worked with a personal trainer, she asked me what my next goals were. And I said, I want to be able to walk outside. I want to be able to dance again, because I danced ballet before I was stricken with polio. And I said, let's change up my health and fitness regimen, because it was very regimented based on my limitations. So she's writing everything down, and she was getting ready to leave my house. And I said, wait, I have one more goal. And she said, oh, well, what's that? And I said, I want to run the Boston Marathon, and I'm going to raise money for Spalding Rehab, which was the place where I took the first steps on my healing journey. And I want to do it next year. And this was in February of 2008. And she could have said, are you out of your mind? You've never run a day in your life. Look, you just came out of your leg brace. And instead, she took on the challenge. And so she trained me, and that's when my adventures began as a runner girl.
Yeah, it's like my whole life memories are coming up. Because how did I end up doing a marathon? Years ago, when a book, Love, Medicine, and Miracles came out, and I was popular and known, I get a phone call. My daughter has leukemia. I want to start raising funds to do research to cure leukemia, and I want you to run the marathon, and people will, donate money each mile and that sort of thing. And I said to the guy, like you said, are you crazy? I'm not going to run a marathon, I'll give you a donation.
Yeah.
And he never stopped pestering me. So one day on the phone, I said, all right, I'll run the marathon. That is, and I think we had about 25 people doing it. But that is the Lymphoma and Leukemia Society today, raising God knows how many millions. But it was his persistence, and you got to admire him for that. But would I have ever run a marathon? I don't think so if it wasn't him. And the other thing I asked God was, give me a sign that I'm going to make it. When we're standing, this is New York Marathon, on Staten Island, I looked down, because I always believe in pennies from heaven, and there was a quarter between my feet. You know, there's, 25,000 people or something, and between my feet was a quarter. So I knew if I found the penny, God was saying, you're fine. And running through Manhattan, there's a penny on the street. But I knew if I stopped, I'd be trampled. So I ran onto the sidewalk, doubled back, and then walked slowly so people could see that. And then I bent over to get a penny. And some guy yells, how poor can he be, as he ran by. But, boy, you brought up all these memories. And I have to say, there's no coincidences. The things that happened to you, I mean, you're saying, look at these good things that happened to me, and they were all disasters, from your perspective. But I want to add, your healing as well. I had a woman who also had polio and post-polio syndrome, and she developed another neurological disease.
Yes.
And her body was just wasting away. And I got a note from her. She said, Bernie, I'm lying naked in front of a mirror and loving my body. Because she said, since I was a kid, when she had polio and everything, she said, I hated my body. But now I don't want to die hating my body. So I'm lying here naked, and I work on my toes, and then I love my feet and my ankles. And she would go inch by inch up her body. And, of course, what happens? Everything regressed. And she was free of disease, loving her body. And, yes, she wrote, I don't think she wrote a book, but wrote some articles for medical journals to help other people with that, type of disease. Yeah.
Well, Bernie, that story from Evie McDonald after I was diagnosed with Post-Polio Syndrome that you wrote about in Love, Medicine, and Miracles, that was, I was, oh, my God, Evie McDonald. And I said, I don't know what's going to happen. They're telling me this is going to progress. But then I remembered Evie McDonald, who reversed the symptoms of ALS. And I said, and through my poetry, I learned to love myself whole, because in addition to polio, my mom was addicted to prescription pain medication, and my father became alcoholic and sexually, emotionally, and physically abused me. And my grandmother on my mother's side also she must have had some severe mental illness, because when we went to her house on the weekend, she subjected me to these torture rituals. So to get through, I dissociated, and I despised my body. I just kind of lugged it around with me. So it's no wonder that I developed a progressive neuromuscular disease. But the beauty and my message is that through love, through gratitude, through creativity, through running, I was able to reverse that. And I do want to go back to speaking of signs, Bernie, and the penny Lionel that Bernie talked about, because when I was training for Boston, Bernie was such a cheerleader on the forum, and he was so excited that I was going to do this. And he said to me, I'm just going to read a little excerpt from my book here. Speaking of signs, Bernie Siegel, MD, one of the pioneers in mind-body medicine and a dear friend since the 1980s, sent me an email telling me to look for the penny. It would be from him and God telling me everything was all right. I found a penny in Wellesley. At the halfway point of the marathon, I looked down and I said, oh, my God, it's from God and Bernie. And I just knew I was going to be fine the rest of the way. So I have goosebumps,
I mean, people may think we're nuts, but it's real. Lionel knows. My wife died a little over a year ago. And
I know.
Pennies that I found, I'll just mention one thing, especially with numbers, like 26 for the marathon. We were married on the 11th, and 5 times I found a dime and a penny in the most bizarre places. Something would say to me, go over and look in that bird feeder. And I'd go over, and there's a dime and a penny under the water in the bird bath that I have in the yard. It's like, how did it get in there? And I know how it got there. But I think, again, when you have the faith and keep your mind open, what's his name, Ernest Holmes, who wrote Science of Mind.